Now, the man has achieved many amazing feats in his long and illustrious career, but what if I told you his biggest achievement ever was a fraud?
Hey guys, what's going on? In our last video segment, we were talking about the whole Perfect Pac-Man by Billy Mitchell and the split screen, and if he was the first to do it. Just to give you guys a short recap, someone put out a video saying that Billy Mitchell may possibly be a fraud because new surfacing evidence, so-called, showed up that Billy Mitchell wasn't the first. I already knew it was just foolishness, but I decided to go digging because the information was obvious that, you know, the person didn't get the perfect score. And a lot of questions came up, and I decided to let me look into this. And there's some things that we need to talk about, guys. So let's get into it. First thing, I contacted a gentleman by the name of David Race. David Race is in the Guinness Book of World Records Gamers Edition 2018 for getting the perfect Pac-Man score by getting it the fastest. So his record is getting the score the quickest. And had a long conversation with him. And here's some of the pieces from the entire conversation. All right. So I saw your post on my YouTube. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know anything about Pac-Man because I don't. The only thing I know about Pac-Man is Billy teaching me how to go through the ghosts at the 35th anniversary. Obviously, we all know about the actual game and what the game does and all that stuff. We know that much, but I don't know the intricacies of the game, such as you, Bill, Billy, and the rest of the guys that actually played the game. But there's some insight that I saw that you wrote on the YouTube that I would like to know. Would you like to share with me, just so that I have this on file, because it's getting ridiculous. The perfect score. At that time, when the letter was written from Midway to William Bastable, which is Bill Bastable, right? They said he gained a perfect score. What was that perfect score? Is that the same perfect score that we know today, or was it a different perfect score?
It was a perfect score as far as they knew at the time. For instance, when in the comment I made on YouTube, if you were to get a perfect score, which means you get the maximum possible, all the ghosts, all the fruit, all the way up into the end of board 255, you're going to have 3,326,600. And when you start the split screen, you see that the board on the left is completely normal. You got all these dots there. You got the two energizers. And then you have a possibility, after you eat so many dots, you're going to have the first key come out, and which is actually is going to be the only key. You eat 70 dots, and then the key comes out, and then you eat that. Once you eat all the dots and eat the key, then as far as Bill Bastable knew at the time, that was as far as he could go. He didn't know about the 9 dots on the right side of the screen. So the ending score would have been 3,332,820.
Okay, and that at the time would have been known as the known perfect score for Pac-Man.
Well, as Bill Bastable has put it, he said, a perfect left side split screen, or sometimes he calls it the vanity board. So, and then of course he later found out from like Chris Ara about the 9 dots on the right side of the screen.
Oh, okay. So now, based on what you're telling me, so the letter is real. Midway did acknowledge him, his accomplishment for what was then at that time perceived as the perfect game, but the reality is it wasn't.
No, I mean, as far as us knowing about the regenerating dots, yeah, that came later. I mean, even Bill Bastable, in one of his interviews that Dwayne conducted with him, he acknowledged he believes that both Billy and Chris Ara got a perfect score before him, because he saw a score that said 3,333,090. which means it got beyond what he knew, which means there had to have been something different, which means that there were the additional dots on the right side of the screen.
Point, I'm convinced that they got one by 1983 or 84. I don't know the exact timeline, but I remember when Chris Sayer was here, he kind of showed me jokingly a picture of 3,333,000 or just a 333,090 or something like that, and he wanted to see how I was going to react to it, you know, to see how I was and stuff like that. I know that he had a perfect game, even though he showed me what he showed me.
Oh,
At the time that I seen him in October of '86.
At the time, there was no distinguishing between perfect score. There have been people through history which some people would define a perfect as getting a perfect score up until the 9th key, which would be like, you know, 365,600. And then some people say, well, no, yet all the way to the end would be, you know, 360, or, you know, factory settings would be 3,333,180. I will say this: Bill Bastable has gotten that same score, the 3,332,820, on multiple occasions, and there is the newspaper documentation of that. So there is some evidence for him getting that score. Oh. As far as the perfect game, which is a separate issue, that I've addressed elsewhere. You know, Dwayne Richard tried to put forth that he was the first one to get the 3,333,360. But when it was examined, it was shown that he actually flipped a dip switch in the machine, where he actually paused the game for a total like say 90 minutes on like 3 different occasions.
You know, how can they say, if there's nobody to tell me how to do it or to guide me, that I shouldn't have been parking it and then freezing the board? Because my attitude was that by the time that I got there to the dots on the right half of the board, that I didn't want to be exhausted. Now, back in the old days, it was casual to go all the way in there and, oh, let's see what I can do, because nobody got into the machine to, you know, see what they could learn about the last board. That's the only thing I didn't know. Now, I'd like to look at people and say, what's important? The dots over on the right, or the rest of the game that made Pac-Man what it was, that I already was in the newspaper by June 20th of 1983 in an article in the Daily Register saying clearly or explicitly that I had 3,332,820 in that article.
Bill Bastable did it, but because he had the machine at home, he actually didn't have such tight, stringent rules placed upon himself to have a proper submission. And what he did was he learned about the rack advance, but he also learned about the freeze. So what he did was, in the middle of his game, and on the 9th key pattern stuff, he actually froze his game in the park spot. It wouldn't really have changed anything because the guys never would have actually got him in the park spot, but because he did that, and he actually admitted that he did that, we found out after the fact that now we have to reduce Bill's score into unofficial, but it does go in the history annals as being done.
Hello, my name is David Race, and this is Pac-Man. I've rack advanced to one of the slow boards after the 9th key, and I'm going to illustrate the difference between using the park spot, as you can see I'm in right now, at least one of the park spots, compared to manipulating the hardware inside of the machine once a game begins, which would be known as the freeze switch, or dip switch 8. I'll show you what that does here in just 1 second. Let me go in the back here. That's dip switch 8. That not only freezes the picture, but it freezes whatever sound was being made at the time. Now, some people saying this is the same kind of thing as simply putting in the park spot. I'm going to show you that that is completely false. It is not the same. I'm going to unpause it, and I'm going to show you why. At least one of the reasons why. I personally believe it is obvious why it is wrong, because look at it. You've interrupted the game. This is not in normal game mode. These are test switches. And you've already messed with the hardware on the circuit board after the game started. Okay, so we're back on. I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to do a couple boards to illustrate my point here. Okay, I'm gonna park it. I go running upstairs. I didn't freeze it. I'm upstairs, I'm getting a snack. Oh! I come back 10 minutes later, let's say I'm in the bathroom or upstairs, and my game is over. Okay, let's let it go. I'm still upstairs in the bathroom. Maybe I'm far enough away where I can't hear the machine. Oh, there's my second death. It hasn't been a minute yet, I don't think. But you know what? It really doesn't matter, because once you lost that first life, your attempt at a perfect score is over with. I'm only doing this to illustrate that freezing by manipulating the hardware, flipping dip switch 8, is not the same as putting it in the park spot. The park spot, depending upon how you enter it, will determine whether or not you can stay there indefinitely, depending on if it was done before or after the reversal, or one of the initial reverses, or scatter and chase. In which case, one example I showed you worked, the other one, similar, and that's the game.
So as you can see, you know, when you get the entire context to something, you get the full information. Bill, not Mitchell, but Bill, the original Bill who set the score based on a perfect record he thought it was, but he was not aware of the 9 dots on the split of the glitch side of the screen. So there's no way he could have had the score. You've heard it from his mouth himself. So he thought he had the perfect score, and when he submitted in to Midway or whatever the case may be, at that time they had no idea what the perfect score was. So, you know, they gave him a letter, it wasn't even a certificate, acknowledging his score at what they thought was this the kill screen at the time, or the perfect game at the time. 2 major important facts that we need to take into consideration, and everyone skips over because it's just this attack on Mitchell 24/7. One, even with the pause button, the freeze button, it's a freeze dip switch button, he still didn't get the perfect score. So it wasn't even the actual perfect score regardless. Despite what was shown here and the evidence, despite being that the letter was real, the context of the letter is that it was a perfect Pac-Man score based on the score they thought was perfect at the time, not the actual perfect Pac-Man score. So the letter is real, but the context of the letter and getting the Pac-Man score is false. That's number 1. Number 2, he used the freeze mechanism to do it. He admitted it himself in the video. You saw that for yourself. Freezing the game is unfair based on David Race's example and evidence that you can die if you don't park the character properly. So freezing the game is the guaranteed chance that you will not die. Although he got it published in a newspaper and they published a score, it is not the perfect Pac-Man score. Finally, as you guys heard throughout this entire conversation, he himself even admitted that Chris Ira and Billy Mitchell got the perfect Pac-Man score before him, because they knew about the extra 9 dots that regenerate on the kill screen, on the split screen, and he did not. So I hope this definitively puts to rest this stupid conversation. And the reason why a lot of you guys were taken on a ride to even watch this to begin with, this conversation came up 5 years ago and was already debunked. But the sources that brought it back up and gave it to Tipster, they knew this. But Tipster didn't. And they knew Tipster was ignorant enough to put it online. And when I mean by ignorant, I don't mean in a facetious manner. I mean not knowing ignorant. He was ignorant enough that he was going to bring up this situation again just to cause controversy and drama to add more pain in the butt for Bill Mitchell. And with that, guys, this is it for me on the situation. I'm going to leave this video here on YouTube so everyone knows. In the end cards, you guys are going to see a full conversation in full context. The conversation I had with David Race about the letter, his record attempt, and the freeze, and then also Billy Mitchell's very own testimony against about the entire perfect score and how he got about it in the podcast that we had previously. I hope you guys enjoyed this and spread this. Thank you.